That's right. The warding meta has returned. This one's going to be a little bit short, but Riot has cleverly allowed supports to place 6 wards in total on the map as opposed to 4. Now, this is a very big thing. I'm going to bring up the first image here. So this is where I figured it out. Clearly, I have 6 wards in total, 2 wards, of course, control wards, and then 4 wards in total for the stealth wards, right? The green wards. And so this is possible due through the new item called Wardstone, right? The Vigilant Wardstone. And it allows you to have an extra slot for your control wards, for you allowed to be able to carry. It's 3 control wards, and then it increases your cap of both your regular wards, as for the green wards, and then also your stealth wards as well for your trinket item. So what this means is that you as a support will keep your trinket item, or at least you'll switch back to the yellow trinket item later on, and then you will also have your sight zone, and then you will have this Vigilant Wardstone. So what does this mean in totality? Well, supports turn level 13 around 30 minutes within professional play, as we saw, at least what I'm going from most recently, which was MSI. And so what this means, and if you don't know, the Vigilant Wardstone, which is the one that actually allows you to increase your entire cap of both control wards and stealth wards or green wards, right? It allows you to increase those caps by 1. And so, but that only happens at level 13. So what this means is that supports will need to stay in lane more, most likely, because you turn level 13 at around 30 minutes. You could probably get that down to level 13 at 27 minutes, I would say, if you would stay more in lane. Probably even more. I think that's more of a conservative value. But I think this also means that there will be more enchanters back within the meta because they have less need to roam, right? So they could stay with their ADCs and kind of soak up experience as such. And then you have the whole debacle of Dragon Soul, which I think at its earliest, you can get Dragon Soul realistically at 25 minutes if a team is completely stomping the other team and, the other team doesn't get any Dragon Souls. Then, yeah, you could get it at 25 minutes, probably the earliest in a professional sense, within LCS or LEC or whatever, right? So now let's go to the passive, right, of the Wardstone itself. So the passive, or rather, well, this is the entire, I guess, overarching thing of the Vigilant Wardstone, right? It's costs 1,100 gold, and it upgrades for free into the Vigilant Wardstone, right, which is like the main thing, which allows you to get, the increased cap and whatnot. Very good kind of item from the outset, and it doesn't cost a ton amount of gold, but it still is kind of a big investment, right? 1,100 gold, it's a lot of gold for a support, right? But in professional play, it's probably fucking worth it. So let's go on to its passive, which means that it gives bonus attack damage, bonus health, and ability power, and ability haste by 12%. This is fucking huge. That means that it's going to be most effective on probably enchanters because of the ability power portion of that entirety of it and the ability haste aspect, right? Both things help enchanters far more than the tank supports, which really can only use the bonus health, and that's about it. They don't really use the ability power potion or a portion. They don't use the attack damage portion. and they don't use the ability haste as effective, because most of the time when you get to the later portions of the game, it's about the all-in aspect. So realistically, you aren't going to get your all-in potential fully rotated and then be able to do it again within, an entire span of a team fight, so to speak. So it's more effective for an actual enchanter, which could then scale up their hyper carry. So really, this is going to be a fantastic thing for the meta itself when it comes to changing up the aspect of the support role and how it functions within today. And I think we will see ADCs being hyper carry become the new norm because of obviously this buff to the supports and the enchanter supports. And now just as an adjunction to this entire thing, tanks now, currently, they clear very slow, of course. We all know that. But since clear speed is less punished with the jungle rework and that they have catch-up XP now, they can gank and they can take it slow, right? Because if you play jungle at all, obviously having a tank is useful in the sense that they bring CC to the lane, right? And so that allows for ganks to be a little bit more successful in that aspect. And it allows for dives to happen way more successfully too, because they're able to pull that off and kind of tank and rotate with maybe the support or maybe the mid lane or top lane, whatever. So I think this is going to change the meta a ton just with the introduction of this reworked item. Also, warding is going to be a lot better when it comes towards the mid/late game, because now you have the ability to 1-3-1 better because of the both denial of vision and the extra trinket ward. And as I said before, supports will now get rid of their sweeper at level 13, right? So whenever they get their sight zone or rather their upgraded support item, right, to where they get the 3 wards on the support item, they will then, of course, get the sweeper. But then when they get the Vigilant Wardstone item, they will revert back over into the yellow trinket at level 13 so that they could get the extra ward on the map. So I think realistically, the winning team will be able to choke other teams out a lot more and a lot more efficiently, to where there won't be as great of comebacks, which there's been more and more comebacks and more upsets as the ward, or rather the previous ward item, right, with Tracker's Knife, or with the previous other ward item of the Ruby Sightstone and shit. So with that, when there was a decrease, or rather, when there was a decrease of vision without those items, now we have an increase of vision with this extra item, which will then allow for a similar play style of what once was League of Legends before. But the caveat is that it's going to take the sacrifice of the support to try and get more XP on the map at all times in order to get to that level 13 power spike, which is going to be a gigantic power spike. In fact, that's probably going to be the most significant power spike. And in fact, what's the crazy thing about it is that support has never had a level power spike basically in the entirety of League of Legends history, aside from the quasi level aspect of the support item being unlocked right at 500 gold and 1,000 gold, right? That's really been the only quasi type level, aspect to where supports get unlocked, so to speak. So as I said, I think the winning team will be able to choke people out more. It'll be more of a secured win. And that's not to say that the team that is necessarily losing can't get this Vigilant Wardstone item to increase their wards, to fight back in vision, and maybe create some pick surprises or whatnot and clear more vision, etc. And they don't have to try and take advantage of the extra ward with the extra yellow trinket. They could maybe go sweeper if they're feeling like there's too much vision on the map and they need to clear it for an instant. But really, I think this is going to increase the vision war, so to speak, far more aggressively, maybe to what it once was beforehand. And even still, even to the idea that we had before, to where you could buy infinite pink wards and as such clear multiple different wards in different areas on the map, and also not have to only clear one quadrant, because as we know it today, the way that Riot set up the new vision system is that you can realistically only clear and only sweep and only pink one specific quadrant of the map at all times, which means then that the other side of the map is very difficult to clear. This is why I also alluded to that split pushing was ineffective in the current meta. And I didn't really touch on that specifically in my video about elemental drakes being actually the reason as to why split push doesn't work anymore. But with this small caveat to where now vision is a more viable option in order to allow your split pusher to then split push, it becomes a little bit more an attractive team composition that you can build within the entire map. Although the elemental drakes are still worth a whole lot of gold, so you might not want to invest in that too heavily. But it will be interesting to see how professional teams figure out that piece of the puzzle, as it were. But I think overall, LCK style is back. We could actually see a return of LCK in terms of their own traditional style of pushing up, getting vision, making sure everything is safe, going for, the 70-30 instead of the 60-40. And I would be surprised to see them actually abuse this heavily first. I think they're probably going to be the region to do this first, because obviously they want to go the more methodical and the more guaranteed route. And I could try and see them shoehorn this to where they'll make it work, so to speak. And LCK traditionally hasn't been the most innovative region, but I think with this, it will be sort of an exception. And I think they'll be able to realize that this is a way back into their old style of what they once were. And maybe this could see a crazy resurgence into Worlds. I think this is a very underrated item as to how much buzz that it's gotten from other content creators, talk shows, analysts, anything like that. So I think really this item is going to change the game fundamentally as far as how teams approach both the champion select with enchanters and hyper carries, or maybe even split pushers if they want to get wild. But it's certainly going to at least change the fundamentals of how you play the late mid game and the late game itself, and how teams choke people out and how they kind of counteract vision and whatnot. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And this is the most exciting thing that I'm ready for the summer split for the LCS, and, of course, the LEC, or even how the LCK approaches this aspect.